before it felt like your geographical location would birth the music. Now, those geographical boundaries have been almost erased.
Hi guys, Tim Cronin, Director of Business Development for the UK and Ireland at FUGA.
Hi guys, I'm Kwabz, co-founder and director at Mixtape Madness.
Kwabs, it would be really useful, I think, with all of your experience and your background with Mixtape Madness, to touch on, I guess, the hip hop landscape, both specifically from a sort of UK perspective, but I guess more overarchingly, hip hop and its influence on the music industry. And I guess for me, hip hop and rap has always been so deeply connected to culture. Like I say, both as a sort of overarching sort of genre, but then also more specifically in territories. You know, look at East Coast versus West Coast hip hop, and then in the
Yeah.
UK, UK hip hop, UK grime. You've got these little UK rap rather. You've got these little like pockets of culture and community that have come from this overarching sort of genre. What do you think it is about hip hop that makes it such a unique space for discovering and developing artists?
I think what's special and unique about hip hop is the element of lyricism attached to it and how it's always been underpinned in telling authentic narratives,
Mm,
as well as encouraging people to kind of, yeah, loosen up and enjoy themselves as well. And there's always been, like I always say, like hip hop has always lived in the dance, right? So when you look at its origin in terms of DJ culture and so on and so forth. But in parallel to that, there's always been an emphasis on the importance of lyricism and
mm.
depicting authentic narratives.
I thought it was really interesting. I don't know if you saw this, but recently Ed Sheeran spoke in an interview about Dave, and he was saying that because Dave worked quite a lot with Ed Sheeran on his recent album, as a producer, but also as a songwriter, and he was giving him his dues as a songwriter, saying that actually people don't realize this about Dave, but you know, a number of other rappers as well, that actually his affinity for melody and like his ears and the way that he can, you know, write a tune as well as obviously being very poetic and, you know, first in class as a lyricist, is, yeah, sometimes maybe not appreciated or valued. And he was telling this story where like him and Dave would be in the studio working on a song. Dave would then like, he'd drive, I don't know, about 3 hours back to the studio, work on it, work on the bounce all night, and then drive back again. And they did that for about a month apparently. It was just like this, the absolute beast, just like going and going and going and writing and creating this. And I think sometimes that, I don't know, it feels maybe that's like indicative with the sort of type of sort of hustle culture that maybe comes from rap and from hip hop. Don't know if you agree.
Yeah, no, I agree all the way. And I think Dave is a really good case study. I believe around the week of his release, there was like an article that was going around about this being the first year where a rap record hasn't featured in the top 40 of the Billboard. And I felt that, that was posted, without a lot of context, and it was you to kind of like generalize hip hop in general and further feed articles and arguments about decline. And then on the other hand, you had Dave who had kind of comes onto the scene and smashes it with his first week sales. And
Mm,
you look at him as an artist, and you look at the team that he's been working with for, almost a decade now. They
mm,
might say longer. And you realize just the importance of having being a talented artist, but having a good team around you and looking at an artist like Dave, and as you touched on, kind of understanding like why it's so important to kind of evolve as an artist.
mm,
And his level of creativity from a songwriting perspective, from a production perspective, and from a perspective of not going against the grain and not feeling like he has to fit the mold is very, very important. This is someone who's had a smash pop single with Central C, that Sprinter record, right? Which
mm,
was a bit more, let's say, commercial leaning. He could have easily had Central C and so many other artists that tick those boxes on his project, and he intentionally didn't do that.
mm,
Went with artists that kind of fit the journey and sonic landscape of his project, and clearly it's paid dividends. And so when people talk about the landscape of hip hop, I find it um, I feel the concept of a genre is so different now to where it was prior. I feel like now we're in an era where it's like almost like music is kind of like used to, let's say, create scenes, but those scenes where before it felt like your geographical location would birth the music. Now those geographical boundaries have been almost erased, and it's like the music is a soundtrack for different niche cultures that can survive in different geographical locations. So when we're talking about even for example, my daughter would know about Brat Summer, and I'll be looking at her
Mm.
like, you better not know about Brat Summer. How old are you? But it's testimony to Charlie XCX that my daughter, who's, in the UK, can connect with a young lady that's all the way in New York, and they
Mm.
both, well, maybe not my daughter, but they're young people can all connect with that hot girl summer vibe, and then Charlie XCX's music being a soundtrack for that in many respects. And that is something that maybe we haven't, that wasn't as prevalent before, but it's more prevalent now. And I feel that we're getting so many genres that kind of overlap. Like Ghana released a record this week with Burna Boy. Burna Boy is meant to be synonymous with more Afrobeat sounding music, where Ghana's meant to be more synonymous with like melodic wave music. They've
Mm.
come together, and so we're seeing so many, I would say, fusions of genre. We had an artist called Kiloin, who's a very talented songwriter and MC. We'd been working with him for like the best part of 2 years. Um, and he has that kind of like nostalgic garage feel to it, but he can
Mm.
still jump on drum and bass tempos and so on and so forth. So I feel the concept of genre is a lot more blurred now, and emerging artists don't need to necessarily worry, like kind of pigeonhole themselves into a genre. And I think again, Dave is a perfect example of that. Like Dave on James Blake is totally different
Yeah.
to James Central C Sprinter, right?
Yeah. But both of them are, I think Dave is such a good case study for this because all of his decision making always seems to be anchored to authenticity. Like through everything that he's released, you get a sense that it's quite binary for him. Is it authentic or not? If it is, then let's explore it. And that could be authentic with Central C or authentic with James Blake, two sort of sonically very different artists, but like both of those projects feel authentic for Dave. And if not, then no. Even if, like to your point, on the surface, it might be a great commercial opportunity. If it doesn't feel authentic, then it's just a hard no. And I think it breathes through the music and the decision making that artists make if that authenticity, sort of that word authenticity, is a part of all of their sort of creative decision making, I guess. It's fascinating. A couple of things you said then that I'd love to sort of delve into a little bit more. One of which is maybe the uh, I guess dilution perhaps of genre. And when we look at whether playlisting and streaming has perhaps had an impact on that, certainly in terms of the consumption habits of a younger audience, they're used to now consuming music via a platform which is predominantly playlist driven, where you can go from a folk record to a pop record to a rap record to a dance record, and therefore they're able to be very agile in the way that they can move from one genre to another and not necessarily wedded to that genre in a way that perhaps used to happen, where that became your sort of cultural identity, being wedded to that genre. I guess my question is, have you sort of observed that that's happening, and do you think that's a good or a bad thing? I guess the good of that is that it increases creative opportunity, because to your point, you don't need to feel shackled as a creative or as an artist that rap is your lane, stay in your lane. You can go and make a garage crossover rap record, or you can go and make a dance record as a rapper. Or are there also concerns or hesitations that perhaps we should have, that it is diluting some of that like rap culture and like rap genre, which has for so many years been, a key part of what helps grow what grows that genre. It'd be great to get your perspective.
Yeah, I think, culture only needs two people, right? So you and your missus today, in many respects, you've now created your own culture, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
you're bringing cultural habits from your parents, she brings in cultural habits from her parents,
Yeah,
and then you kind of mix and blend it. And I'm sure you and your missus are aligned on a lot of things, but I'm still sure there's still
of course.
differences that you brought into the blending melting pot, and
Yeah.
then you introduce that to your kids. And I think culture is something that is meant to be fluid, and it's not meant to be, stagnant and stagnant and immutable. And I feel
Mm.
that's the journey of music, right? And music's there to reflect different generations, cultures, times, and that's what we're effectively seeing now. And now, like I said, in terms of the sound, where geographical boundaries have been eroded to a certain degree, you can hear someone make a funk beat in Russia that's vocaled by someone all the way in America, New Jersey,
That's amazing.
doing, 100 millions of streams. So
Yeah.
it's those connections that we're seeing now that I do think there's an element of beauty to it. I do understand, in terms of hip hop, I get why, purists might feel that it doesn't have the same purity as it might have done before. But again, even for them, I believe there's an audience that cater to that sort of hip hop that they might be describing. Um, but yeah, no, music is always evolving and culture, even that's why I guess especially in hip hop, when we use the word culture, I sometimes like chuckle a little bit because I'm just like, what do you
Yeah.
specifically mean? Like, what
Mm.
social norms and values are you referring to that's meant to be um embodied in this music? And hip hop is evolving in the same way where, and not all aspects of culture have always been good, right? Now more than ever, we're seeing I feel loads more um women rise to the forefront as musicians, right? Traditionally, and I'm not saying this is synonymous just with hip hop, just synonymous with music overall, but hip hop as well. Like maybe there were less women that were coming to the forefront in terms of their musical careers, or the women that were coming to the forefront may have felt that they were more boxed in, where now you're seeing a wider plethora of different type of women rise to the forefront in terms of their music. So Dolce, she's cold, she's sick. Little Sims, she's cold, she's sick. You're still a
Yeah.
different type of artist, but you're still holding down your corner and doing it the way you feel best. Then we've had even in the UK, we could talk about Steph London, then we could talk about now, we could talk about Shy Cartier. And even though, there's still probably barriers that are there, it feels like now more than ever, it's reaching a far more um it's reaching a place where we're seeing far more progress. Do you know what I mean? So, like I said, you might have Dolce on one side and then Sexy Red on the other side, two totally different type of artists, but they're still managing to exist.
Mm.
Whether people agree with their lyrical content or not, is it good that they're here? For me, yes, it is. It's very good, and it's not for us. And that's the other aspect of it. I think there's a lot of doomsayers that are doomsayers because they're trying to police music. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like if you don't agree with Sexy Red's lyrics because you think it's too sexually explicit, but you're not having that same energy when male rappers are talking about, their sexual exploits, then what are we doing here? Do you know what I mean? Now you're not even consistent with the way that you're trying to police the music. And that's why I think for me now, it's like even if someone's come up with music that's not necessarily to my taste, I'm still happy that they've got a stage for that music and they've got a stage for that audience. Do you know what I mean? There is a murky element to it. Don't get it twisted. Like when you see some of those musicians where they're going into certain political arenas, maybe making music about our skin color and so on and so forth. Yeah, I'm not happy with that sort of music. So there'll always be, I guess, adverse byproducts of how open the music and culture has become, but that still shouldn't. get people in a mind frame of thinking we need to get back to this place where there's gatekeepers and we over-regulate what type of music filters out to the masses.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful way to look at it. I've never thought about culture like that, but it is essentially just it's the coming together of two different perspectives, isn't it? And then that can be four different perspectives, six different perspectives, 100 different perspectives, and that's essentially at the core of what culture is. And I think when you look at it through that lens, then yes, why should it be limited or gate kept to, something that it was 10 years ago? It can be fluid, it can be malleable, it can change and evolve over time. And I think that's a really beautiful way to look at it, especially when that environment also allows for greater boundary pushing in terms of creativity. It can mean that you don't feel like you only, as a rapper, you can only make this one type of music. You can collaborate with a pop artist or with a dance electronic artist or with, we've seen recent examples of that. Beyonce releasing a country album, it's great that these boundaries are just sort of being um, taken down, and artists now feel that they are limited to a certain genre space or a certain, in inverted commas, culture, and that they can straddle different audiences, different groups, different communities. It's a really good thing. Um, there's one other thing you mentioned as well when you were sort of talking about Dave and maybe observing some of the successes that he's had and analyzing maybe perhaps why that's happened. And you mentioned that he's had, the same team for a long period of time. How important is that? Because you do see that, I think, a lot with certainly some of the more sort of successful rappers, that they've worked with the same teams for a number of years, and they've got that real sort of close-knit community of people that they can trust. What do you think that says about the value and consistency of working with the same team for a period of time?
Do you know, I just look on a like really basic level, and I think it's testimony to your people's ability to build relationships, right? So, um, relationship building is such an important part of our ecosystem. At the end of the day, we're in a people business and we're
Mm.
trying to connect with people. And so when I feel as an artist, it's so important that you can build effective relationships, and that goes toward that's paramount to the team that you're building. And as a musician, and you want to be a successful artist, that means you want to run a successful business. To run any successful business, you have to have a cohesive team that can kind of work together to achieve a cohesive goal. And yeah, when you see, and I do feel like for artists that have had, long run success, they've had that level of consistency where they've been consistent with their music, they've been consistent with the team that they're working with, and they have been in a position to kind of push boundaries and take things forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's an industry where perhaps loyalty isn't always valued as a currency. And I think sometimes if you can stay the course and build that trust, exactly as you say, it's a relationship business. If you can prioritize that within reason, of course, you've got to make
Yeah,
decisions.
yeah, 100% within reason.
But if you manage to navigate a relationship and a team where that can grow and evolve over a period of 10 years, of course that's going to probably give you, massive rewards, because you do have that trust with those people, and you hopefully all have the same sort of ambitions and intentions, and you know that you're looking out for each other's sort of best interests.
Yeah, and I think it's the same across I think it's the same story across the board, right? So, us as an independent label, that's how we look at our distributor, right? So if we're with a distributor for a certain amount, anytime we've been with a distributor, we try to make sure it's going to be, at least for a medium to long term type relationship. It's not one where we're going to be there for 5 minutes and try and run and get a check from somewhere else.
Mm.
Because when you're building that relationship, you're learning more about each other. They know about your habits, stuff that you do well, maybe things that you might need improving with, and it's just that flow of information sharing. So I've got this record that's bubbling. Tim apparently is doing well in Germany. Is there anyone in Germany? Is there any independent labels in Germany that you can kind of connect me with? Maybe a German rapper can kind of jump on it, or a German producer could remix it, or are there any space in Germany that you can connect me with where this artist can go and perform and we can really further push that track? And those sort of relationships are crucial in kind of taking something from being local to global, as
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
in all realms, relationship building is paramount.
Yeah, I think that's a really good place to close. I think um, you're absolutely right. The music industry is a relationship business. If you look at what else we've learned, I think your definition of culture is actually a really special one. Culture is malleable, it is fluid, it's something that should be an exchanging of views and perspectives and experiences. And I think if we all view it as such, then hip hop can continue to grow and rap can continue to grow and all of the other genres that make up this wonderful sort of music landscape. And out of that comes collaboration, and collaboration is only ever a good thing for the, for as long as music's existed, it's been inspired by other different pockets of genre and taste and artists. So I think us all being champions of that can only be a good thing.
100%. 100%.
Nice and Krabs, good to chat, mate.
Appreciate it. Thank you.